GSL Educational Society presents our new initiative, Medula, through which we bring you some inspiring stories and golden words said by some amazing people who excel in their profession. I'm glad to welcome you to our today's episode of Medula.
Good morning, everyone. So amongst us, we have an amazing pioneer, Dr. Nageswar Reddy, who is the chairman and the founder of Asia's largest gastroenterology hospital. So it's a huge privilege for us to have you amongst us. So my first question to you is, can you please share a little bit about your journey from being an undergraduate student to becoming a founder of the Asia's largest gastroenterology hospital?
Yeah, so my journey started with MBBS at Kurnool Medical College, which is Kurnool is a small town, not many people know about it. But my dad was working there as a professor of pathology, so when I got a seat in the entrance, I chose Kurnool. Now Kurnool, although it is a small medical college, was at that point of time, in terms of teaching, student-teacher relationships and all, was excellent. So we had a very good 5-year undergraduate period, and after I finished that, the next thing was to do I decided to take up internal medicine rather than surgery, because internal medicine was more intellectual at that time. So when I started thinking of internal medicine, I looked at where I should do this. There were not many big centers in our state, Andhra Pradesh at that time. So I thought I should do it in one of the institutions outside. So then I chose Madras Medical College, where there was a very famous professor called K.V. Thiruvengadam. He was very famous not only in the country but all over the world, and they said he is one of the best teachers in medicine. So I joined Madras Medical College as an internal medicine graduate. So when I was doing internal medicine, in about second year, I started getting interested in gastroenterology, because of the virus, hepatitis B virus was just discovered. And there's a very famous scientist called Bloomberg. He got the Nobel Prize for discovering this virus. So I started getting very interested into that. I had an opportunity to have dinner with Bloomberg, talk with him. So that gave me an inspiration to go into gastroenterology. At that time, gastroenterology and hepatology were same specialties, not divided. So after I finished my internal medicine, I wanted to do gastroenterology. So the professor there, Dr. Madan Gopalan, when I asked him I wanted to do gastroenterology, he said the best place for gastroenterology in India was at PGI Chandigarh. So he said you must go and do that. So again I had to write an entrance exam and got into PGI gastroenterology. So I did gastroenterology in PGI for 2 years, and at that point of time had several options, but decided that the best option would be to come back to the state, because that's where we started. Of course, I had offers both at PGI and going abroad also, but I thought best to stay back. So when I came back to the state, I joined the state service. Initially it was very disappointing, because gastroenterology was a very equipment dependent specialty, and slowly I started developing interest in the field of endoscopy, which was more equipment dependent. And unfortunately, the state government was not able to provide that. So after a little period of frustration, I was working in the Nizam's Institute of Medical Sciences. I decided the best way would be, if you are dependent on technology, then government is not definitely the best place. So I started practice in a small place called Medula Diagnostic Service, and then gradually my intention was to do well in practice and of course build up a good service. Two things happened at that time which changed the complete course. I was a very busy practitioner. I was making a lot of money because endoscopy, you make a lot of money. What happened was, one day my dad called me. My dad was a professor, retired professor of pathology. He called me to the house for dinner. I was staying separately, and then he told me he was very disappointed with me. I said, "How come you're disappointed?" He said, "You've done your MD, DM and all that, and then so what are you doing now?" I said, "I'm practicing, making good money." He said, "That's not success." So what he said, I remember still, he said, "Success is building institutions, teaching students, producing research papers and contributing to society." So he asked me, "Are you doing any of that?" I said, "No." Then he said, "You're not successful." The second thing that happened that time was, I was of course very good at technique of ERCP, and one of the chief ministers in the neighboring state's wife had a laparoscopic cholecystectomy. The stone slipped into the bile duct, and there the local doctors couldn't remove it. So he rang me up middle of the night and said, "Can you, I'm so and so speaking, Chief Minister." I said it was a joke, but then when he was very serious, he said, "I'm going to send a flight. Can you come to this particular city and remove my wife's stone in the bile duct?" So I have all the equipment, we did that. So he was very pleased. He said, why don't you start a gastroenterology institute in our state? And I said, no, I have to go back to Hyderabad. Can you help me there? So what he did was he actually gave us this building and all in Hyderabad before gastroenterology. At that time when we started for gastroenterology, people said, why you require a separate hospital for gastroenterology? It's not a big specialty to have a separate hospital. But we realized that about 30% of normal patients in our volumes have gastrointestinal problems. So that's large enough, and that's how we started. Slowly we got together a group of people, surgeons, other physicians, pathologists who are interested. So we started to get about 40 or 50 people interested in gastroenterology, and this became a full-time institute. We all stopped practice, took salaries, and then decided to make this into a research and academic institute. Simultaneously, we started a research institute on the side along with this to integrate both together. Over a period of time, as this grew, I realized that we require bigger space. In fact, again that happened, serendipity was that our then Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh walked in for a checkup, and then he found the hospital so crowded. He said, how come you people are in such a crowded? I said, this is a 300-bed gastro, we can't get bigger. He said, no, you should be in a bigger space, and that's how he allotted this land to us to build a new hospital. And then we built the AAG hospitals in Gachibowli, which I decided at that point of time it should become multi-speciality, because in addition to gastro, many patients have other diseases, and as they grow older, you get patients with gastric cardiac, gastric orthopedic and so on. So this became a multi-speciality. So we now have AAG hospitals, which is a 1,000-bedded multi-speciality hospital, and the previous 300-bedded Asian Institute of Gastroenterology. So together we run this with about, now we have around 400 consultants of different specialties working together.
So, ascending to this position, you must have faced numerous challenges. So, how did you overcome them, and what is your secret mantra?
Yeah, so the greatest challenge that I've seen as we are building these institutions is not money. The greatest challenge is egos in people, you know. We deal with different grades of people, right from very high-end consultant doctors, junior doctors, then you have nurses, you have office staff and all. The most difficult people to deal with are doctors, especially the doctors who are super specialists or doctors who have achieved a lot in life. All have so much of ego in them that this ego destroys everything else. So balancing the egos, trying to get people together into one platform when they have different types of opinions, egos is the most difficult thing, and that's the challenge I always face. In fact, I have a book with me all the time called How to Kill Your Ego, and I give it to the difficult people. You read this book and then you can understand.
Sir, in your 42 years of experience from being a medico in Karnool Medical College to becoming a chairman of Asia's largest hospital, what is that one case that has changed your perspective about the medical world?
I think that, of course, as we doctors, we face so many cases every day. There are several things that change you, and one of the most important things for me was I remember in our old hospital we used to have cameras facing the receptionist, you know, when patients are. So one of the patients who came in had a bleeding esophageal varices, and we were doing endoscopic sclerotherapy to stop the veins. So after we finish the procedure, the policy in a hospital is any emergency comes, you don't charge the patient, do the procedure, and then the patient pays and goes back. So I was watching in the camera, and this particular patient was taking out money here, there. It was not very expensive, about 600 rupees, but he was taking out coins and all to finally make up that money, and he was going out. Then I called the receptionist and found out what happened. She said, okay, he was finding it difficult, but he finally paid this amount. I called the patient. So this patient happened to be a barber, having a small shop. He had this complication, he got it done. He could have just said, asked for a concession or just walked off, but he didn't do that. He was so dignified that he paid whatever he had and was walking back to his shop because he didn't have money for transport. I then realized how dignified these patients are. Many of the people who deserve good treatment don't ask for concession also. Whatever they have, either they borrow and they come for it. And this changed my perspective of how we should support a lot of these people. So that's how we started a big fund called the Asian Healthcare Foundation, where a lot of people donate, and based on this donation we support people like this. So I think healthcare is a funny business. You can do good, you can cure many people, you can help many people, but other way around also, because this is related, it's a business transaction, it's sometimes very bad that you have to charge people and then do a business. So healthcare strictly should not be a business. It should be like what happens in NHS, for example, where everybody is entitled to healthcare, nobody has to pay. But that's the utopian situation. We don't have this, and this is the most difficult part of healthcare in our country, or in most countries.
So you have received a lot of awards for the work that you have contributed towards the gastroenterology. So I'm very curious to know, what is your favorite achievement, favorite award that you have received until now?
These awards are usually byproducts of what we do, and generally they should not actually change how we feel, or to some extent what happens is some responsibility is put on you because you get these awards. But in general, I think one should not get too enamored by the awards, because as I said, one is they are all byproducts of what you do, and secondly there is a lot of luck involved. There are many more people more deserving for these awards, but you happen to be at that particular time, or the particular politician happens to know you, so you get an award. So that's all. So I think the awards which are given by but your peers, your own doctors, are probably better than all these political awards. So for me, the Rudolf Schindler Award, which the ASG gave me recently, is probably the one which I am very proud of. The reason is Rudolf Schindler was one who actually invented endoscopy. 1940s. In 1960, he himself got the first Rudolf Schindler Award. And since then, every year, this Rudolf Schindler Award is given by the ASC to one person in the world. And for the last 40 years and odd when it's been given, it is never given to anybody outside US. It's never given to anybody outside the United States, because United States doctors felt they were the supreme, and there's always, it's decided by a council of 5 people who are all American doctors. They're very strict about it, and they always see it doesn't go out. So after so many years, for the first time, after Schindler got, Schindler was a German. After Schindler got, actually I got the award. So for me, it's a very proud.
Sir, I'm very curious to know, what advice would you give to the medicos, especially to the budding medicos and the postgraduates? What is that one thing that they should keep in mind while they're treating the patient?
First of all, I think when you finish your medicine, say you finish MBBS, at that time it's very important to reflect and think what your interests are. Is your interest patient care? Only then you should proceed further into post-graduation. Because if you don't have the passion and get into a specialty without a passion, it becomes mechanical. Just because your parents are, say, in medicine, then you get into, after finishing MBBS, very often getting into MBBS to a large extent determined by parents in our country, that you can't change. But after finishing MBBS, you should reflect back, what's my interest? Is it going to be patient care, or is something else? Is it going to be health related businesses, is health related, for example, Sandeep has done simulation, is it that? So you should decide what is going to be a passion. Suppose your passion is in a particular area, you must pursue that, because without passion you can't excel in any field, especially in medicine. Now once you get into medicine, you have passion for that, you get into clinical medicine, the most important factor that a doctor who's pursuing clinical medicine is empathy. This is the most important thing. Unless we empathize with our patients, we can't proceed further. And empathy is not sympathy. People mistake it for sympathy. Empathy is being in the shoes of the patient or the relatives and think how he's thinking. So for every patient we see, if you have this empathy with the patient, then I think we can be good doctors. Whether we are great skilled surgeons, endoscopists, or great diagnostic people is different. Eventually we'll become good if we go on doing things, but to be a good basic doctor, this is very important. The second most important thing for doctors, in my opinion, is communication. Unfortunately, we are not taught communication skills in medical school. So we have to be good communicators, because again, medicine is a life and death phenomenon. It's not like going to the market and buying something. A patient is coming and subjecting himself totally to the doctor. He's giving himself up. So he and his relatives deserve proper communication and explanation, and again doctors are not good at that. So empathy and good communications are what makes even an average doctor into a great doctor.
So coming to research, you have not done 200 or 300 research papers, but you have contributed towards 650 research papers. So sir, can you please enlighten us about your research journey?
When you talk about research in medicine, there are several kinds of research: clinical research, basic research. But what is the most important thing, in my opinion, is translational research. So whatever work we do, research work, should be quickly translated into clinical work. And this can be achieved if you have translational research workers along with the hospital, and that has been our aim from before. So what we did was to set up a center for translational research, where say biochemists, molecular biologists are working, and whatever work that is done, we give a time span. Within a year's time, that should be translated to some form of clinical work. For example, a lot of work we are now doing on gut microbiota, and a lot of it is getting translated quickly. We are treating patients with say inflammatory bowel disease, gut microbiota, basically because we did a lot of translational research. So I think the key word is translational research, and I know many doctors are very busy clinically, they can't do themselves, but I think there must be some association with some form of research for all doctors. That broadens your horizon, and also I think it improves the quality of medical care you can give.
So what advice would you give to students for their long-term goals? How should they discipline their minds to stay on track for achieving their goals?
No, I think the important thing is there will be a lot of influences for a student from different sides. There will be the influences that he sees his peer making a lot of money, he has gone into engineering, has done software, and then he makes a lot of money, or some other friend has gone into business, is making a lot of money. I think medicine is a unique profession, and we actually are fortunate to have the opportunity to serve people in terms of saving their lives or curing their disease. Very few people get this opportunity. I think they should think of themselves as blessed because of this. And I think the important thing is have passion, empathy and communication. These three skills, passion, empathy and communication, will make you great doctors. And again, it's very important to enjoy your profession rather than taking it as a burden. Once you start enjoy what you're doing, every patient's history is a big history you enjoy yourself. Every patient's gratitude when you treat them, again, is something that actually empowers you. So I think all these are very important aspects of medicine which no other profession can give.
So can you please tell us, how do you balance your work and family life? Being a leader and managing such a large hospital, you must be really stressed out and burned out. And how do you revive yourself, sir?
So I think work-life balance is extremely difficult, especially as you become more and more busy, successful in life. You can never have work-life balance. There's some part of life you'll have to neglect, and most often that part of life we neglect is a family life. So that's a regret that I have, but you can't help it. Somewhere along the line, your child or wife suffers because you don't spend enough time with them. But that's part of life. You have to give up something to gain something. There are very rare people who can actually balance it out very carefully, spend enough time with the family, spend enough time at profession, and have their own personal time to themselves. So the most important, I think, is this me time, so-called personal time. Even for very busy people, they must keep about half an hour to 45 minutes of their day to themselves, where they can do whatever they want. This could be meditation, this could be exercise, this could be just staring at the wall, just thinking, just to themselves. So this half an hour to 45 minutes is enough to refresh you for the day. So one has to be selfish in that me time. This is not the family time, this is just for that particular person. Now the family time is what equation you develop with your family. Some families are very understanding, they know that you have this role to play, so they understand, like my family was understanding. But if you don't have a family which understands, then you have to take a call whether you want to go with your family life or sacrifice part of your say career for this. So that's a very personal thing to do. I know a lot of people, very good doctors, who actually sacrifice their careers, practicing only 1 or 2 days a week, spending rest of the time with say the son or a daughter because they want to do that. That is also a different thing. But in general, for all great achievers, some amount of personal sacrifice is a must, and you have to make that choice.
So coming to my last question, can you please share the advice for the budding medicos of the GSL Institute?
I think to all the medicos at GSL, I'd like to say, first of all, how fortunate you are to be in a place like this, have an opportunity to go through the simulation lab, your campus, and it's fantastic. It's better than any I've seen. I've seen large number of campuses all over the world. It's better than anything that I've seen. First of all, how fortunate you are. And second, I think it's important that you enjoy what you do, enjoy your work, develop a passion, and of course, very important that you respect both your teachers and parents for what they've done for you.
So thank you so much for sharing your journey. It was very enlightening and very inspiring. We are very privileged to have you on this platform. Thank you, sir, for giving us.